Hi, I'm Scott Armstrong. I'm Editor-in-Chief of Arabian Business, and I'm delighted today to be joined by JK Khalil, who is the Saudi, Bahrain and Levant cluster head for Mastercard. And today we're going to have a look at the business opportunity in Saudi Arabia. Khalil, globally the pandemic has accelerated digital growth and e-commerce. What's been the story in Saudi Arabia, and how has Mastercard been part of the story as customers flock to contactless and e-commerce?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Scott. So indeed, time of pandemic has been interesting to observe consumer habits changing, right? Same thing has happened in Saudi Arabia, similar to the rest of the region. There's been changing and shifting behaviors on the spend side that we see, namely, obviously, going away from cash to electronic payments across the spectrum of channels. The world faces a new reality with COVID. We continue to leverage the power of innovation to bring safe and seamless payment experiences. It's no different in Saudi or Bahrain or Levant, where we have really doubled down on enabling more contactless payments, promoting and increasing awareness, helping that shift to the electronic side, whether it's in store or online, as well as use other alternative methods such as QR, where it was enabled. This has also helped driven, contactless payments such as, wallet payments, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, in Saudi specifically, Mada Pay. And I think this, at least studies show, we have done a round of surveys actually in Q2, where studies have shown that more than 80% of Saudi respondents to that survey will continue to use contactless post-pandemic, right? So the picture, and now it's evolving. Now in KSA just alone, if you would look at it, contactless transaction earlier this year grew 3 times as fast as non-contactless in the same period last year, right? So COVID-19, if you think about it, the pandemic and social distancing recommendations have put the spotlight firmly on touchless experiences. They have discouraged people from touching cash, with all the potential hygiene elements that would come with it, or risks that would come with it. And hence, contactless transactions, e-commerce transactions, mobile money solutions are all the obvious winners from that perspective. And, we've been at the forefront of this stuff. This is stuff we've been saying and doing for the last 10 years. Yeah. It so happened that the maybe, 6 months have accelerated that rate of adoption that much more. Just to give you a couple of examples, just like from real life, right? How we have really leveraged our innovative solutions to drive these secular shifts. So, for instance, we have partnered with Delivery Hero. You may have seen recently in the news. We've fully digitized their payment chain, spanning the entire region of MENA, including Hunger Station and KSA, their arm in KSA. In MENA, up to 20 million consumers, really, 650,000 riders and 100,000 restaurants are positively impacted by the enablement of these seamless, touchless, secure digital transactions and pay on delivery solutions. So, it's been great for the industry and definitely a much better experience for the consumer and merchant as well.
I've been talking to quite a lot of businesses recently, and I think the message that everyone's saying is that, and just to pick up what you were saying there, post-COVID, our behavior has now changed and changed permanently, do you feel, as far as the adoption of contactless and adoption and the kind of integrating that into our lives now?
Absolutely. I think, like I said, when we did the survey back in, I think it was April, May, and the results came out in end May, it shows that at the time, about 60% of the population had at that time, so at that point in time, already done at least one contactless transaction. That wasn't the case maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
And when 80% of the respondents say that they will continue to use contactless post-pandemic, that's a huge statement. That means it's no longer related just to hygiene factors. It is people shifting behaviors. Really, hey, instead of me going to the ATM, taking out cash, and then having to go spend it next door, might as well just tap my phone or tap my card, and keep my hands clean, don't have to touch anything. Transactions actually even faster and seamless. Actually, if you think about it, when we've done this sort of time motion analysis, contactless transactions are 10 times faster than a regular transaction at the checkout, a cash transaction at checkout. So, queue busting for merchants, a much more seamless and safe experience for consumers. It is a natural winner because if you think about it, it was just a matter of adoption and awareness, and COVID has just accelerated that, actually forced it upon us to learn that actually there's something and cleaner than cash.
Just to focus on Saudi Arabia for a moment, with its huge youth population, it already had a very vibrant startup scene. How have you seen that develop, despite coronavirus perhaps? And what's Mastercard's role been in supporting that young entrepreneurial spirit in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, indeed. Saudi Arabia probably, seeing a startup revolution like no other. I mean, if I were looking at numbers from last year, there was 20 fintechs. This year, there's 60 fintechs alone. Fantastic growth. Look, let me start from Mastercard. Mastercard's global initiative known as StartPath, which is our global platform, global startup engagement platform that places a lot of focus on partnering with fintechs and emerging technologies and startups and SMEs also. Most of them late stage, to be honest with you. I think we're at 500 or 600 now in terms of where we are in terms of the fifth or sixth batch. And we really groom them and help them, get access to our 25,000 issuers globally and partners globally. So this ecosystem, this startup ecosystem mentality and partnership approach already exists at Mastercard globally. This is no different in Saudi. For young entrepreneurs in the kingdom, StartPass has been a phenomenal program as well. We brought it to them in a number of flavors and events over the past 2-3 years. And continues to enable them to seamlessly and effortlessly establish themselves throughout our support system, right, provided with the vast Mastercard network. Now, this is, again, part of a global vision. Like I said, we at Mastercard believe that we feel we can actually really reach 50 million small businesses, and 25 million of those will be womenpreneurs, entrepreneurs by 2025. Actually pledged, you may have heard about it, $250 million in financial support towards that cause. So it is really at the crux of how we see ourselves as a partner to startups. In Saudi, it is no different, as I said, not just because the ecosystem is opening up faster, but also because we are directing some of our focused resources to actually engage in a dedicated manner some of these rising fintechs, helping them through the journey and ushering them through what we call it. We have a FinTech Express program, and the FinTech Express program allows us to fast track new players who have very little to no sometimes experience in the payments business, go through the motions, because as you know, payments is a regulated business. It's a permission. We are a permission company in every one of the 200 we operate globally. So we owe it to our partners to help guide them through quite a complicated and rigorous process of regulatory approvals, getting the right green lights from the regulator, making sure that all the banking standards are upheld throughout the onboarding process. And we have a process for that called FinTech, or platform for that known as FinTech Express. So we're quite active. We're engaging today somewhere between 40 and 60 startup discussions happening today, obviously at different various stages of progress in the kingdom. So yeah, quite a bit of activity there.
Just to circle back to a point you were just making just then about women in Saudi Arabia. I mean, they've been on an incredible evolving journey over the past 2 years. How's that translating into business and new economically empowered customers or businesses within the kingdom?
Yeah, look, this is a very good question. I think it is no secret that in Saudi, probably the most dormant untapped potential is the woman factor in on the labor side, right? 2% of business owners today in Saudi, or actually less than 2%, if I may say, of business owners in Saudi are women, according to a 2018 survey we did at Mastercard. Look, this is not just a Saudi problem. Let's be also very clear. This is a MENA-wide problem. There's an estimate from the OECD that in the broader MENA region, gender-based discrimination and laws and social norms cost the whole region about $500 billion a year or thereabouts. So yeah, so in Saudi alone, I think, frankly, whereby Saudi may have been perceived as a bit behind on that front, I'm seeing actually much more faster movements and progress, milestone being ticked in Saudi versus the region sometimes over the last couple of years. And actually, you see this in real life. I mean, you see more women participation in senior roles within the government. In my industry, many more women in banking, but also across the STEM, technology, and emerging technology sort of space. I see them in data and data science. When I talk to merchants, I see some women coming from the data background. So you'll see that that's starting to change. We see much more actually on the fintech side also. If I look at even my staff in Saudi, there's a team of 29 people, about 40% are women. Actually, we just appointed a country head for my Saudi team that is actually a woman as well, Maria Medvedeva, who joined us from the Mastercard MENA world. So there's a lot of activity there. Our goal within the region across MEA is to activate 10 million SMEs with Mastercard products and solution by 2025. Like I said, and of those, half of them will be women, right? Because this is part of a global 50 million micro SMEs by 2025. Again, 25 million of them women. So we are targeting 5 million within Middle East Africa region. I think Saudi will have its own fair share, given its size and prominence within the region. We aim to continue to expand the contributions of women entrepreneurs, especially in the kingdom, given the size and magnitude of that potential. Try to include and be as inclusive as possible and offer the right technologies, but also program education, awareness, training, and so on and so forth to unlock these new ideas and solve for half the population, essentially. Right?
I mean, you talk about $500 billion missing out. What is the economic benefit of having that inclusive base of entrepreneurs for a country or for economies? I mean, $500 billion, that shows us the size of the prize, surely.
Exactly. Look, at the end of the day, you're talking about half the labor force, right? Whether it is equally equipped today or not, given, and I'm talking MENA-wide, gender inequality in terms of education and access to opportunities, but it's still a lot. I mean, this is still half of the labor force, not necessarily equally equipped and ready. But if you change that and look down 10, 15, 20 years, you're definitely talking about half the labor force, like equally, similar to what you have in the Nordics, Western Europe, most of the US, etc. So it is a serious opportunity. Now the Arab world has as we all know, an unemployment challenge that needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm. So the have regulations like the ones that we've seen in Saudi, if you remember 2-3 years ago, where they said, we can't afford to have labor on the retail services side unless it's a Saudi woman. So then they immediately opened that sector up, and lo and behold, there's nothing complicated about selling products. And if you train these, educated women and who know how to read and write and spell themselves, articulate themselves, they can sell any product. So it's just really about creating the right regulatory environment, right incentives also for merchants and for the right segments of the population, and you automatically increase the share of the wealth with that segment of the labor force, but also relieve a lot of the pressure off of government coffers, which have to typically be subsidizing families and so on and so forth. So it's a great win-win across the board. It helps economic growth, it drives inclusion, and it improves overall quality of life across the MENA region for sure, but definitely Saudi, who's done great strides in that direction.
A return for a moment, if we can, to fintechs. I mean, the kingdom's got a growing reputation as a place for fintechs, and you were talking before about the sort of the fintech growth. Just give me Mastercard's download of the fintech scene in Saudi Arabia.
Sure. Look, our journey with fintechs goes back a while in Saudi, when a lot of the global fintechs were actually knocking on the door trying to get in. Across MEA, we engage about 1,200 fintech players that are out there at different stages of development, and obviously they are of different sizes. I mean, you've seen probably we've also invested in the likes of Jumia or Network International recently. And that's a great statement for, that we put our money where our mouth is, and that we're really supportive of the fintech ecosystem. Now, look, the beauty of the Mastercard ecosystem is that its infrastructure lends itself naturally to fintechs, right? We are such a multi-platform, multi-rail, multi-asset organization that makes fintechs of all kinds, and by all kinds I mean like across the entire value chain, or startups across the value chain who not just want to play in the payment space, could be in user experience space, could be in the supply chain space, could be in the, across the entire value chain, across all the industries, to actually really want to join hands and partner with us and work with us. We've started that journey a while back with telcos, namely in Africa, with lots of success in UAE and then in Saudi. Now we are very close to actually partnering with e-tailers. But as startups increasingly from diverse collaboration with traditional financial institutions come into the fore, we are starting to introduce them more and more to the banks in Saudi, because also banks want to enhance their competitiveness, and they realize that there are things that they cannot cook in-house. So they are reaching out and they are accepting now that partnering model. We help through our brand vet a lot of these fintechs. We bring them up to speed. We help them reposition their brand or their product proposition sometimes, to make sure they are fit for for a competitive play in the market. And we realize the important role that they play generally in accelerating digital. So because we are so focused on our mission of a world beyond cash, and we are not super just focused on FIs like maybe many of our competitors, we are much more open. So that's why you see us with smart, much more agile on the smart city side, on the transit side, having partnerships with governments, with the large merchants, airlines, and so on and so forth. And we really bring fintechs, Scott, into a lot of these discussions. So it's not just a slogan whereby we slap a couple of PRs in the press. It is really about bringing them to participate in these discussions with our largest partners, so that they can create value where others, in the ecosystem are struggling, right? And I gave you an example what we've just done, for instance, with Hunger Station. We work with them. Yeah. We a lot of some of our technologies. With SCC Pay in Bahrain, we are participating with them, and we are really enabling them as well. Neobanks like ILA have come out of nowhere in Bahrain and set up a digital bank from scratch. We're working also very closely with large partners in Saudi, largest banks like NCB, Rashdi, or Riyadh Bank, but as well as SAB. And the way we do it, again, is we enable them with our technologies, but we realize also there are parts of the value chain we cannot play in. So that's why we invite fintechs, right? To complement and to partner on areas which honestly are not necessarily core to us.
If I was kind of to sum up right now, we've got the G20 Leaders Summit happening in Riyadh right now. And the theme of the G20 this year is creating opportunity for all. Within this conversation, we've talked about young people, we've talked about female entrepreneurs, we've talked about startups and fintechs, we've talked about, you just talked there about partnership with government. That seems very much that theme of creating opportunities for all. It seems very in tune with what Mastercard is looking at in terms of a strategy moving forward.
Actually, it is, right? Look, we are a very inclusive company. I'm sure I've said the word inclusion probably 15 times today. We believe the future is definitely digital. We've even reflected that in our organizational structure, where we've actually merged the product and the digital practice into one. We call it the digital consumer practice globally. So that's our product strategy, if you will, to think about it. We think product is digital and digital is product. And so that's why, and hence I was saying, we are so our partnership with the startups and fintechs is so organic and synergetic, right? We believe that as we've seen, the number of fintechs between just 2019 and 2020 has increased by threefold, like I said, from 20 to 60. Yeah. And we see another 100 at the commercial stage that we are starting to scout and keep on our radar. We believe that it's about inclusion and going beyond traditional segments, Scott, like I said, going forward, right? And it's a mix of two things. We, as Mastercard, as you probably have heard, have embarked on this multi-rail strategy, meaning we are not just a card company. We operate in the carded space, in the online space, in the remittance space, which is a huge choice, and we're making huge strides in Saudi, Bahrain, and Levant in terms of like recreating or reinventing the remittance space in a much more seamless, faster, transparent, and seamless way for both consumers and merchants, and easier to launch. And very recently, you must have heard that we've launched, which is in Saudi, which is our account-to-account fast ACH, payments, which will allow people to just send money from their accounts to each other in a matter of seconds. All of these new rails that we are putting in place, and there's many more in the pipeline, are part of our vision to enable not just the current rails today, but also the future rails, and help Saudi Arabia and other markets really reach and capture a lot of these values. So, for instance, in Saudi, we expect, I think, that fintech transactions alone, will reach $33 billion by 2023. From nothing a few years ago. So these are the kind of things we're putting in place: APIs, enabling technologies, multi-rails, multiple platforms and assets. And it's all made available so that the ecosystem itself gets enriched and can play around and mix and match assets the way that the product, or rather the way that the market, right, requires it, demands it. Consumer demand is king, and needs and pain points will always be the first thing that will make or break any technology or solution. Like we don't come up with products that are looking for solutions. We look for our solutions looking for problems. We look for problems, then we attack them. We partner with fintechs and so on and so forth. That is our entire mentality about going forward, right? It's an inclusive partnership.
2020 has been a challenging year. Let's finish the interview off on a kind of optimistic note. What's exciting you, or what's making you optimistic about 2021? What do you see as the primary opportunities, specifically maybe in the kingdom, and how are Mastercard going to help businesses, grasp those opportunities?
Look, we've had a challenging 2020, but I am very proud of the team and our partners, the way we stepped up to really ease in to ease the blow or help our consumers navigate the challenges of surviving this pandemic. And I, not trying to be boastful or anything, but I think the team has done a fantastic job this year in Saudi. I think it was a great year for us in terms of what, when life gives you lemons. Yeah. But our plans in the kingdom, right, were super well coordinated. We were very much supported by a fantastic global team, virtually uninterrupted the entire time, all working remotely. And we had the right empowerment and right equipment in place to deal with 2020. Now, I expect that kind of modus operandi, Scott, to continue slightly into 2021, right? I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that it's going to be a switch on 31st of December. I know it's going to be like in back in 2019 sort of old normal, right? We're going to be in the next normal. The next one is going to be a bit challenging. It's going to be a bit different. But I think we've gotten used to it, and our confidence in 2020 is increasing, and it comes from this approach that we are taking to be resilient, right? So we'll continue to leverage our network, our insights, our technology, and definitely, most importantly, our partnerships, right? To help inform and enable our partners, both on private and public sector side in the kingdom, including banks, SMEs, fintechs, merchants, consumers, and so on, to sustain ourselves through the crisis, right? We will focus on what has worked really well for us in the lead up to 2020, which is the realization that we are a multi-rail company, not just as a slogan, but in reality, and offering all these options to consumers and to merchants and to banks has enabled them to, let's say, balance or orchestrate, right, their efforts and their activities based on whatever works, the flavor of the day, so to speak, right? So when cash was hard, e-com was the champion. When e-com came through, remittance became another pain point. We solved for that. Then small merchants came to the fore, and we brought in Simplify as a solution, sort of like a Shopify of Mastercard to bring merchants on board. So every time there was a problem, we came up with a new solution, new partnerships, and that really put us to the fore as a multi-rail company. That served us well. It will continue to serve us. Being a multi-rail company will serve merchants, banks, telcos, fintechs, SMEs, you name it, governments, and we'll continue to work on serving these partners as a single technology provider of choice, right? To connect all these entities to their consumers and create that holistic, seamless, safe, and secure ecosystem powered by our solutions and propositions. And we believe this technology will positively impact the kingdom, obviously, because actually, if you think about it, everything I've told you is really happening in the kingdom. So the kingdom really, and I'm not saying this because this is about Saudi, or I'm more invested in Saudi, but it's because really Saudi, if you look at it compared to the region, it has been able to bring a lot of these rails to life. and it's really been considered as a sort of gold standard of payments for payments in the region. And this is a statement of fact.
Great. JK, Khalil, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott.